Also today, some of the annual workshops on undergraduate teaching were held. Here's a look at one of the topics, Rethinking the History Major.
We're here today on a session called Rethinking the History Major. So that's really what's focusing on how do we reevaluate the approach that we're using for teaching in the 21st century. We're focusing on teaching and learning. And the idea here is that history is not just about delivering information to students, it's really about developing a certain set of skills that students need to learn and to experience in order to become effective, useful citizens in the world. So that's really, it's not just about just facts that we used to be thinking about for history. It's about what do you do with those facts and how do you use them.
I'm always interested in hearing more about what we can do to improve our own major and work on the learning outcomes and what our students take away from being a history major.
At the institution that I work at and other institutions I've worked at in the past, it's hard to get students interested in history and to understand the value of history.
I would say the top three things that we want our folks to get out of this. One is that they need to think about teaching as developmental. Yeah, that it would really help if you could scaffold learning, not only within the course, but across the curriculum. Another thing is that students need to understand the learning process. They have to have the curtain pulled back and to see all the bells and whistles and all the machinery behind the teaching of history so that they become active learners in the process. And I think the third thing is students need to be able to assess themselves as well as having somebody else tell them how they did. So self-assessment is a very important part of what we want to talk about today.
My first takeaway from the session has to do with an introductory class on historiography, on methods, something that helps students get started with understanding what historians do so that they can be better historians themselves as they go through the major. That's the top one. And then secondly, I think it's been an important reminder of how different institutions are, yet we all have this common goal of making our students be the best history students that they can be.
Working in coordination with other departments is very helpful for the student. Also, making sure that the students understand the concept of thinking in an historical manner rather than just in a straight linear manner, and just being able to work effectively with students at all different levels.
I found it extremely valuable, the workshop, because it's so important to just have time to reflect on teaching. We often get caught up so much in our own grading, and then we have to balance that with our other service obligations and research. So it's great to have this kind of a session where we get to think about teaching, and I already had a few great tips from people after the session as well that I think we'll be able to use back home.